All right, it looks like, let's see, we're live, running just a minute or two late today. Give a minute for everybody to join in here if anybody's going to tonight. And let me get set up here so I can answer comments. There we go, 2 people joined in now. Hey, how's it going, UAG? Or Flash, I guess. I don't know which one to call you, but I'll call you one or the other. Dark out tonight. I need to get some better lighting out here. Hopefully you guys can see me okay. All right. 9 people joined in so far. 11 now. All right, we got some people joining now. How's everybody doing this evening? You guys are quiet. Good. I'm glad you can see me okay. Hey, Thomas. I guess I can call you Thomas. And Tiffany, hello. Hope everybody's having a good evening. It's been a crazy busy week for me so far. And, I don't know. In some ways, I can't believe it's Thursday already. And in some ways, I can't believe it's, not Friday or the weekend already. It's just been so busy. Doing well myself. Thanks, Bobby. Micro Homestead. New to the live show. Well, welcome. I'm glad you joined. Those of you guys that are new to this show, really all it is just a chance for me to interact with the viewers. So it's pretty much just up to you guys what we talk about tonight. I just answer the comments the best I can. Realize that the comments go by pretty quick, so if I miss your comment because I'm answering another comment, then I apologize for that. You can ask it again. I'll do my best to answer that, though, if I can. Okay, you said, UAG says, I had a rabbit that had 5 bunnies and 3 of them died. Why? Oh, boy, there could be any number of reasons for that. Was it a first-time mom, maybe? Sometimes first-time moms just don't know what to do. They don't do a good job of taking care of the young. If she didn't pull any fur or something like that, then that could be the cause of it. Usually in that situation, if it is a first-time mom, then just give them another chance. They'll probably do much, much better the second chance. I usually give them about 3 tries, and if by the 3rd time they haven't got it down, got motherhood down, then I just remove them from the breeding program at that point. So hopefully that kind of helps with that. Hey, Carissa and Clint, good to see you. Diplomatic Diploma. I'm going to have a hard time with that name, but anyway, at what point in a chick's life do they eat the most food? Well, when they're full grown, probably. About 8 weeks old and on is probably when they eat the most. I've got a hatch of quail right now, 44 birds in the brooder box, and I'm keeping track of how much they're eating on a daily basis. So I'll be doing a video soon that talks about how much food it takes to feed those birds out and how much it takes to get them up to 8 weeks old, up to butcher size. Had a lot of requests for that, so that's what I'm tracking right now, and I'll be doing that video soon. All right, Saul says, hey Chris, I have some cross silky and red star silky and Americana and silky and Rhode Island chicks hatching out left and right. Will the skin be black on them? I really don't know, Sauls. I'm sorry, I'm not a chicken expert. I have dealt with chickens before, but never silkies, and I'm not real familiar with those, so can't answer that question. I'm sorry. Micro Homestead wants to know if I know about pigeons. Not a lot about pigeons. I mean, you can ask the question. I might be able to answer it, but not a pigeon expert either. And Aniela says, hello. How are you in very busy spring morning in Melbourne? Rabbits, quails, and chicken topics are favorable ones. Have a nice evening. Well, thank you so much. We're doing fine here, but it's coming up on wintertime right now. We're supposed to have our first hard freeze this weekend, get down to about 28 degrees. So I wish it was spring, but anyway, I kind of like wintertime too. That means hunting season's coming up pretty quick. Maybe I'll do some hunting videos. If you guys want to see some deer hunting, might do some squirrel hunting, something like that. I might do some of those videos for you guys. All right. Yeah, whoa, look at that. Somebody's asking. Outdoor Trapper wants to know if I'll make a squirrel hunting video. You know, I've actually been thinking about that. I probably will do a squirrel hunting video. See what I can do for you guys. All right, Tiffany wants to know, says, if my doe killed all her babies, should I breed her right away? First time mom. I'd give her about a week at least, and then go ahead and rebreed her at that point. Just give her a little bit of time to get over the lost litter, dry up a little bit, and then I would go ahead and breed her. All right, Thomas's Poultry Collection wants to know, how many quail can I fit in a 2-foot by 5-foot cage? General rule of thumb is about 1 square foot per bird. A 2-foot by 5-foot cage would be 10 square feet. So you should be able to fit about 10 birds in there pretty comfortably. If they've all been together, they're all getting along just fine, you can probably go up to about 12 to 15 if you had to. No problems whatsoever. That 1 square foot is just kind of a general rule of thumb. If it's a wire bottom cage especially. Now if it's a solid floor cage, then you want to go much, much lower than that, or you're going to have problems with waste buildup and feet problems and those kinds of things. So you'd probably want to go more like about seven birds in there, maybe 6, somewhere right around in there. But if it's wire bottom, anywhere up to probably like 15 would be fine. Okay, what do we got here? What can affect the flavor of quail meat besides feed? The raw meat is downright pungent this year. Not talking about the mild game flavor. Okay, this is Danny asking this question about... yeah, sorry, I got distracted by another comment. Valerie's wanting to know, it's already dark there. Yeah, it's dark here. It gets dark, well, it got dark about 20 minutes ago, somewhere right around in there. And, I don't know, until daylight savings time comes around, there's not much I can do about that. Okay, back to affecting the flavor of quail meat. Well, it may be just something that's an acquired flavor. It is a dark meat. It does have kind of a minerally flavor to it. There's not going to be much you can do to change that. That's just the way it is. Lots of people really, really like that. Lots of people don't like that so much. A lot of it may have to do with the way you're processing it. I always let my quail either cook them right away in like an hour after processing them, or let them rest for about 24 hours in the fridge. Don't soak them in water. Let them dry age for about 24 hours in the fridge, and that tends to help a little bit with that. All right, what else we got here? UAG, do you have any advice on how to make my rabbit more friendlier, like how to tame it up? The best advice I can give with that, and especially if it's like a red-eyed white rabbit, it may have vision problems. That may be part of the reason why it's aggressive to you, is make sure you talk to the rabbit before you approach it. Let it know you're coming. Try not to startle it. Always bring some kind of treat with you, something it really likes, like banana or strawberry or something like that, and just give it time. Work over and over again with that. Try not, don't go picking the rabbit up. Just put your hands in there, give it a treat, try to pet it gently on the head, but again, make sure it knows you're coming. Don't startle it. And those kinds of things over time will usually help out with that. But yeah, an unfriendly rabbit can be difficult to tame up for sure. Oh, I feel like I'm screaming here. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. All right, adult birds. This is Diplomatic Diplomer again. My adult birds stand on top of each other a lot, and I wouldn't have a problem if they weren't pooping on each other. How do I stop them from standing on each other, and how do I clean the birds? Wow. How do you stop them from standing on each other? I don't know that you can. I mean, if they want to stand on each other, that's what they're going to do. Give them some other things to stand on, maybe. Make sure you have plenty of cage space. They may be all crowding together and doing it that way. As far as cleaning the birds, I think just brushing them off would probably be the best bet. I wouldn't try to bathe them, especially not in the fall or the winter where it's kind of cold outside. They're usually pretty good about kind of cleaning themselves up. If you give them like a dust bath, a sandbox or something like that, for them to get in and kind of rustle around in, they'll clean themselves up. That's probably the best thing to do. Andrew, good to see you too. Sorry you can't stay long, but hey, thanks for joining us. And Izzy, hopefully I can call you Izzy. You've got such a long name there. Hope all is well with you too. Thank you very much. Valerie, I saw your question. You said, do I have or have I ever had a chocolate lab? No, I've never had a chocolate lab. I've had golden retrievers and Labrador retrievers, but not a chocolate lab specifically. Great dogs, super smart dogs, but they are on crack for the first like 4 years of their life. I mean, they're just bouncing off the walls. So if you get one, it's probably a good idea to invest in some dog training for it, and you're going to have to make sure you spend a lot of time with it playing fetch. Throw the ball, 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 throw the ball for hours on end. But they are good dogs and smart dogs. So, all right, what do we got here? Thomas wants to know, will wasps harm my quail? Probably not. I mean, there's always a chance that one of them will get in there and sting them, but most of the time they're not going to bother your quail or your rabbits or anything like that. As long as they're not bothering the wasp, they should be fine. Okay, James Johnson says, I have to drop my roux to hen ratio 1 to 4 and my first hatch was 10%. Should I up my roux? Okay, maybe I'm not understanding here. You have to drop your roux to hen ratio 1 to 4. My first hatch was 10%. I don't know what you mean by 10%. Do you mean, oh, you mean a 10% hatch rate? Okay, I understand what you're saying. Probably not a fertility issue unless you started incubating the eggs like just as soon as they started laying them, when they first like hit 8 weeks and their very first eggs. Try again. It's probably 1 to 4 is plenty enough rooster to fertilize all those eggs. If you need, look up my video. It's a playlist actually on my main page on how to improve your hatch rates. Go through those videos and follow those steps right there. And if you're still having a bad hatch rate, then come back. We'll talk some more and see what else we can shoot through. But my guess is that it's probably more related to either you got the eggs too early, the birds were just starting to lay and you didn't give them time to get fertilized, or you had maybe a problem with your incubator or a temperature issue is the most common issue. But I don't know that for sure. It's hard for me to say. I Love Gamers says, by the way, I liked your salt holder in the rabbit cooking video. My salt holder, okay. Funny story about that. You know what that was? That was the ring box from my wedding. We got done with that. It's just a hint. It's like a little log, if you guys didn't see it. I shouldn't say a log. It's a little stick. I mean, it's about that big around. There we go, that big around. And it's got just a hinged lid on it, and it's caved out inside to make a box. And that was our ring holder for our wedding. And afterwards we thought, well, what are we going to do with this? Hey, we'll just make a salt box out of it. And it works great for that. Okay, UAG says, if I breed a rabbit, what can I do to keep the bunnies alive if the doe isn't taking care of them? Not a lot, unfortunately. I mean, you can get supplements and try to hand feed the rabbits, but incredibly difficult and hard to do. Your best bet usually is to try to hold the rabbit down and let the babies nurse on the rabbit. But what makes you think that she's not taking care of them? That's pretty rare for a mother not to take care of her bunnies or of her babies. As long as they're fat, as long as they're not, super skinny, she's probably taking care of them. You just probably aren't seeing it. They only do that about once or twice a day, and it's usually like in the middle of the night when nobody's around. You very seldom ever see a female rabbit nursing her young. It's just a survival instinct that they have, but that doesn't mean she's not taking care of them either. All right, I'm missing something. Valerie, you're saying maybe not. I don't think they will attack them. Are you talking about the wasps again, maybe? Sorry, I have a hard time I get jumped from one comment to another and I have a hard time keeping up with them. So sometimes when you're trying to continue a conversation with me, I've lost track of what we were talking about before. Izzy is fine. Good. Because that whole name, Isabel, Real Miss Izzy, is too much to say all at once. Hey, Tigress, how are you doing? Glad to see you here. Okay, Valerie Nikonov says, bye, Chris. Have to look for training videos for a future dog. Well, hey, good luck with that. There's a guy I was watching a little bit of on dog training videos, really good. Larry something or other. I can't remember who he was, what his last name was, but if you look up like e-collar training, you'll see lots of videos he has on e-collar training. Real good trainer from what I can tell. His technique seems very, very sound, and he's a balanced trainer. He's not all positive, all pack mentality. He's kind of balanced right in the middle, which is what I really like and has worked really well for me. So you might check that out if you can find it. If you can't find it, come back, let me know, and I'll look it up for you, and I'll leave a link for his videos. All right, and Anelia, I can't pronounce your name. Anelia, maybe, I don't know. By the way, by the way of rabbits' lives, do you have any idea how long the Angora rabbits are living? Since I decided to keep this kind of rabbit, now is the proper season for the purchasing of young ones. Rabbits can live for quite a while, 10 years. If you're looking at breeding them, they're probably only going to be breedable for maybe 3 to 4 years at the most. But you should be able to get, 7, 8 to 10 years, somewhere right around there, out of a rabbit. And if you're looking for Angoras, you're probably looking to do a fiber, and I think you could probably get that out of them for quite a while. Valerie says, wearing of danger. That's why the rabbit is stomping. Okay, I don't know if somebody says something about rabbit stomping, but yeah, a lot of times it can be that. It can just be territorial. It can just be, hey, this is my cage, stomping. It can just be looking for attention, but a lot of times what they're doing is they're trying to let other rabbits know, hey, there's something around. Not necessarily danger, just something around. So that's why they stomp their feet a lot. I find that my buck stomps his feet whenever I'm near his cage and I'm not giving him attention. If I'm not reaching in there and scratching his forehead a little bit, he kind of stomps his feet every once in a while like, hey, I'm here. You know, don't forget about me. He likes a little bit of attention, though. All right, Diplomatic. This is actually happening. I've been hatching eggs for a while, and every time I get 1 to 2 birds with a square eye, really, they always die before 3 weeks. I can't find which hen is responsible. How? I mean, how do I find which hen is responsible for the birds with the square eye? You know, it may not be genetic. It may be something to do with low hatch, low temperature in your incubator or something like that. Otherwise, if it is genetic, I'm not sure how you would track that down other than isolating your hens so you could figure out which eggs came from which hen and then incubating only those eggs. That would be quite a work, I would think. So I'm not sure. Don't know that I can help more with that. Okay, UAG says, I'm saying that the doe only takes care of certain bunnies, not all of them. That's what I meant. Okay, so if you have a really, really large hatch rate, like over 10 rabbits, 10 bunnies, 10 kits in a litter, then it's probably because she just can't take care of that many. I usually find that if I have more than 10 rabbits in a litter, it's not uncommon to lose 1 or 2 of those. Sometimes they struggle with taking care of any more than about 8, and you can do a couple of things. You could try to supplement them with, like, get some supplements from the feed store. Just go in and ask them for it. They'll be able to point you in the right direction with which ones you need. But I usually just kind of let nature take its course and figure the strongest will survive. That's really the direction I usually take. Okay, I Love Games says, where do you find 20% rabbit food? My TSC only carries 16% protein foods. Well, 16% is not bad for rabbit. It's pretty good, and you can get away with that if you need to. Otherwise, check to see if you have like a feed mill or a feed store somewhere in your area besides Tractor Supply. A lot of times they'll have access to higher protein levels, or they may mill their own feed and be able to provide you with that. And you'll probably get it a lot cheaper than you would at like Tractor Supply or other box stores. So just a thought on that. I drive, not for my rabbit food's here in town, but it's at a feed store. But my quail food I drive about 20 miles to get, but it's so much cheaper and I get a better product than I can get here in my town. So that's a couple things. All right, Quessy Park says, hey bro, what can I use? Ear mites. Ear mites, incredibly easy to take care of. Get some mineral oil or olive oil or any food grade oil is going to work. Get an eyedropper and just put a couple of drops in your rabbit's ear. They're going to hate it. They're going to shake their head like crazy. You're going to have to kind of hold them to do it. It's not going to be fun, but do that, and just do that every day or so for about 3 or 4 days, and then give them about a day or 2, and then do it again until all the scabs and all that are gone. And then just watch them pretty close after that. And if the scabs aren't starting to come back, you got it licked. Hopefully that helps with that. Pretty easy to take care of. Look at that. Doug's answering that question too. I know the video's getting a little bit choppy, guys. I'm having bad internet problems here lately. They're just not good connection rates. Sorry about that. I would fix it if I could. No, the live stream's not over. Just poor internet connection, sorry. Alright, what do we got here? What's the absolute youngest to process a rabbit? Well, I suppose you could process them about as young as you wanted to, but usually about 8 weeks. When they hit about 5 pounds is when I process them. It's not really worth it any less than that. So that's usually between 8 to 12 weeks. Alright, Damien says, I have a doe and tomorrow is her 27th day since she took the buck. Should I give her the nest box? I'll tell you what you do, Damien, is take a handful of straw and throw it in her cage. If she picks it up and her mouth starts running around the cage with it sticking out both sides of her mouth, yes, put a nest box in there. That means she's getting ready to have her babies. You could go ahead and put the nest box in and just see how she acts. As long as she's not, using it for a bathroom, then it's fine. I would probably go ahead and try and put the nest box in probably today or tomorrow. I see Doug is saying day 28. That's probably a good bet on that as well. But I like to use that straw test. Just throw a handful in, and when she picks it up, starts running around, put the nest box in. Best time to butcher rabbits. Well, for me, the best time to butcher rabbits is usually Saturday afternoon, but I don't think that's what you're asking. Best time to butcher rabbits is when they get up to weight, somewhere around 5 pounds. So again, that's 8 to 12 weeks usually with most meat rabbits, but that's what I like to wait. Till about 5 pounds, that's about the perfect size for me. All right, James Johnson says, I have Georgia Giant bobwhites, and some of their toenails are getting up to 1 inch long. Should I trim them? You can trim them. I don't bother with it myself. Give them some kind of like a block of wood or something, in a sandbox or whatever for them to get in and kind of scratch out a little bit, and that'll kind of help control that a little bit. I just really don't ever worry about clipping their nails myself. I don't even clip my rabbit's nails, really. I just don't bother with it. They do just fine. They'll scratch at their boards. I put little, like 2x4s, untreated 2x4s in their cage for them to chew on and play with, and they'll scratch on that a little bit and kind of keep their nails worn down a little bit. But to me, it's not a big issue. I don't have any problems. As long as they're not having feet problems, getting them hung up in the cage or anything like that, it's really not that big of a concern. Well, Damien, thank you very much for watching. I'm glad that you're finding the videos useful. And Quessy, no problem. Glad I can help you out there. Taxidermy of meat animals, yay or nay? Well, heck, if you want to, why not? I don't see any reason not to necessarily. I don't know a lot about taxidermy. I mean, I've done some videos on like rabbit foot keychains, drying out rabbit ears for dog treats, those kinds of things. But as far as general taxidermy, I'm not real familiar with it, but I don't see any reason if you want to taxidermy a meat rabbit, then go ahead and do it. Why not? I don't know if you guys can hear the wind blowing around me. We've got like a cold front coming in. It's going to be cold in the next couple of days. Lone Wolf, that's the one. Larry Crone, e-collar training. Yeah, he does a lot more than just e-collar training. I just know he's easy to find by searching out e-collar training. But yeah, he's done some pretty good videos on dog training. I like his method and what he teaches. I think it's pretty good. Speaking of dog training, where's my dog? I don't know if he's out here right now. All right, what we got here? Diplomatic says, recently a quail of mine escaped and I lost her, but she showed up a day later on the neighbor's lawn with both legs missing. Oh my gosh. I wouldn't keep her as an egg-laying hen. I would call her and put her out of her misery. If she's got both legs missing, that's a hideous life. I think I would put her out of her misery. Sorry to hear that. Okay, quail farming wants to know how and for how long can I store store fertilized eggs. Quail farming, I actually did a whole video series on hatching and storing eggs. It's on a playlist on my homepage. You can go back and check that out. But the short answer is generally you're going to want to store them below 70 degrees if you can. And they'll store for about 10 days usually. Your fertility after about 7 though really starts to drop. So I try to incubate all of them within 7 days of collecting them, and I use a cooler to store them in. Don't pack it full of ice or anything. I just use one of those freezer packs that you stick in the freezer and freeze. Use one of those. I have 2 of them. One stays in the freezer, and I switch them out every day. Put them in an angle inside there, like put them in just an egg crate at an angle. I use just a mason jar inside there, set the egg crate on top of it, put the ice pack underneath, and then every evening, whenever I collect eggs, I flip that thing around so they're getting turned. So it's tilted this way, and then I turn it around. I can't turn my arm that way. Then it's tilted that way, if that kind of makes sense. Hopefully that's the short answer, but you can go back and watch those videos and see all about it. Spray them down with a Listerine mixture, 50-50 Listerine water, regular gold Listerine. Kills bacteria issues with them. You don't want to wash them, like scrub them. This is just a mist them down, and that helps a lot. Izzy says, we're sending the cold south. You're welcome. Well, it's that time of year. It's actually past that time of year. We should have had a frost by now, and we haven't really. Okay, I Love Games says, I saw a video about how to water rabbits in the winter. The guy had the same setup as yours, and he just put a gutter heater in the bucket. Would that work or no? Okay, it depends on, I'm from Southwest Missouri. We get cold in the wintertime down to 0, sometimes a little bit below 0 Fahrenheit for a couple of days at a time, and no, that won't work for my setup. The problem isn't keeping the water from freezing. You can keep the water in the bucket from freezing. You can keep the water in the lines from freezing. It's the nipples themselves. They freeze almost instantaneously whenever it gets that cold. And you're going to have something that circulates the water through in order to keep everything from freezing. So you'd have to put like a pump in there and have your hose go all the way back around, connect back into the bucket so it's circulating the water all the way through all the time. But even then, I don't think it would keep the nipples from freezing. You'd have to do something more than that. I just switch over to Crocs in the wintertime. It's just easier. All right, any suggestions on raising rabbits on all forage fodder diet? Well, you can do fodder for them. You can do like, let's see, like alfalfa and buckwheat and what's the most common one? There's wheat. There's several different fodders you could use for them. There's lots of, I mean, it's not really that hard to do. You rinse the seed off, you pack it in pretty dense in like nursery trays, you set them up in a deal where they just get watered on a fairly regular basis, and you rotate them out, and you got about 7 of them going because they're ready to go in 7 days. So every day you're packing seeds and putting them up there, and every day you're taking a tray out that has fodder in it and putting it in there. I don't do that because with only 3 rabbits, I've only got the buck and the 2 does, and kits every once in a while. It's really a little bit too much extra work for me, honestly. It's just easier to go buy pellets and feed the rabbits, and it's not that expensive, so that's kind of where I go from. And Quessy, don't worry about one more question. Ask as many questions as you want. I'll do my best to answer them all. Okay, Diplomer says, do quail become less fertile as they get older? Yeah, they do, but that's probably like, usually they're going to do their best egg laying and fertility within the first 1.5 years, somewhere right around in there. After that, then the egg production starts to drop a little bit, especially after 2 years. They'll still be fertile, they'll still lay eggs, but I just replace my breeders about every year and avoid all those problems. Okay, Adam Massacott says, what's the best bedding for the quail brooder? It depends, really. You can use a lot of different things. I've gotten recently where I just use paper towels and just lay paper towels down. You got to change them out. Usually they'll last for about three days for the first, couple of days they're hatched. And then after that, it's about every day, every other day. You've got to switch them out. But, the same thing's pretty much true with like wood shavings and all that kind of stuff anyway. And I find that it's a little bit easier to clean up the paper towels, just pull them out, put a fresh one in, than it is to switch out other bedding. Stay away from cedar, but other than that, most pine, any of those other kinds of wood shavings are going to work just fine. You could use, let's see, probably clay cat litter, as long as it didn't have a lot more in it, it's just clay. You could use shredded newspaper would work pretty good. You want something they can get good traction on, so you don't want to just lay down sheets of newspaper. They're a little bit slick, and that can lead to like splayed legs, where they just can't stand on their legs. But other than that, just about anything like that's going to work pretty well. All right, let's see. Quessy says, I have a female about 10 pounds and 11-month-old. Placed her with several bucks, but she was just not interested. Yeah, that's pretty common, especially with first-time breeders. A lot of times, oh, goodness, Max. Sorry, the dog just ran through my legs, about to knock me out of the chair. Okay, where was I with, okay, yes, pretty common for does to be a little bit reluctant to breed, especially the first-time does when they haven't bred before. What I would do in that situation is just keep trying. I try in the morning, go back, try in the evening. About 10 minutes, 15 minutes at a time. Try the next morning, try the next evening, try the next morning, try the next evening. Usually by about the third, fourth time you try, the doe's a little bit more receptive to that. If you have to, after about a week of doing that, you can force breed them. I really don't like to do that, but that's where you hold the female down and kind of put your hand under her belly and lift her rump up for the buck to breed on. I really don't like doing that, but if you have to, you can. Usually just doing that about every day, twice a day, for about 3 or 4 days usually fixes that problem. All right, where are we at here? Okay, why do people see rabbit farming as cruel? I see it as me trying to save money and seeing exactly where my food comes from. You know, I love games. That's how I see it too. And unfortunately, just a lot of people out there are just so disconnected about where food comes from. They just see a cute fuzzy animal and they can't disconnect their emotions from that. I guarantee if they came over and picked up a couple of my rabbits with short sleeves on, they probably wouldn't see them as cute and fuzzy anymore. But you know, you can't fix that. Don't stress yourself about that stuff. Just ignore it. Let it go. You know, be as compassionate as you can with those people. They just have a different point of view, and you know, you're not going to convince them. Don't get into arguing matches with them or anything like that. All right, Jessica Lloyd says, best way for keeping kits warm during the winter. A good nest box, you know, lots of straw in there, and that's all you got to do. You don't really have to do anything. The mother pulls a lot of fur, and they do just fine. I've had kits born in, you know, 20 degrees or even less, and never lost one. And as long as they're born in the nest box and the mother pulls fur, never lost one to the cold. They do just fine. Cooper Gale, hello from Texas. Well, hello from Southwest Missouri to you. I used to live in Texas, actually. Thomas's Poultry Collection. Can I fill the bottom of my quail cage with sand for their floor? Yes, you can. You can definitely do that. You're going to be cleaning it a lot. You know, scooping out the droppings a lot. But yeah, it's absolutely an option. You can do that. Michael Richards, a little bit late joining tonight, but hey, don't complain about that. You made it. I'm glad you're here, and thank you very much for joining. All right, can I leave a link for the solar cell lamp that you use to provide extra light? I've been looking for a solar light that you can get like on Amazon, a good reliable one. I'm really working on that. I got mine from Harbor Freight. It's just a solar shed light, but I'm working on a new light. I'm actually got a manufacturer I'm working with trying to develop one that I think is going to be fantastic. So I'll roll that out to you guys whenever I get that done. You have a quail. Okay, this is Willy Wonka. I have a quail 3 weeks and has a bad leg. Should I kill it or see what happens in the future? Depends on what you mean by a bad leg. As long as it's not like, check to see if it's bumblefoot. You know, check their foot, and if you see like a big, like scabby, you know, it looks like a big zit or a boil or something like that, probably bumblefoot. You can try to treat that. Basically, you have to dig the core out, cut it open, dig it out with like a pair of tweezers or something like that. But it's difficult to treat, so it's probably best in a lot of cases to just go ahead and call that bird out. If it's just a, like if they're just limping or something like that, give it a little while. A lot of times they just get over that, no problems. All right, Maddox Trick says, what food can I bring? I'm not sure what you mean by what food you can bring, I'm sorry. All right, how long can quail live without food? Not animal cruelty, but whenever I run out, I need to know how much of an emergency it is. I would be pretty quick on that. They really don't want to, you don't want to go more than like a day without food, because what'll happen is they'll start picking on each other for the food if you do that. And they'll probably kill one of the birds and eat it, and it's very gruesome. You don't want to deal with that, so it's best to make sure you don't run out of food. No more than a day, I would say. Jessica Lloyd says, thanks, I love these videos. Well, thank you for joining, and thank you for watching the videos. I'm glad you like them. All right, do I still deer hunt? Yes, I do deer hunt. Deer season is coming up in like 2 weeks. And I'll fill you guys in on this. I'll bring it up again next week. But 2 weeks from now, I may or may not do a live broadcast. I've got to travel again. I'm going to be out of the country again. Is it 2 weeks from now? Maybe it's 3 weeks from now. Yes, it's 3 weeks from now. And I actually leave the second day of deer season. What a bum deal. But that's the way it worked out. I'll be back by the next weekend, so I'll get some deer hunting in one way or the other. Okay, what should I put in my rabbit cage for bedding because it's getting super cold here in PA? Well, what do you mean by super cold? Games. I love games because I don't use any bedding in my rabbit cages. You could put a nest box in there full of straw, but I find that they don't use it. They just kind of get in there and go to the bathroom in there, and that's about it. They don't really get in there. They've got big fur coats on, and honestly, they do way better in the cold than they do in the warmth of summertime. As long as they've got a windbreak, as long as they're out of the wind, you really don't need to do much else. You're from the islands, Trinidad and Tobago to be exact. Well, hey, nice. I've never been to either one of those. I'll be in the Dominican Republic in a couple of weeks, but that's not Trinidad or Tobago. So otherwise, who knows? We can meet up, I don't drink coffee, but I know that everybody else down there does. But we could, you could have coffee, I could have a soda or whatever. But, who knows? If I ever make it down to Trinidad or Tobago, we could do it that way. Okay, Noob King. That's a great name. STW Noob King. Okay, so so I put my doe in the buck cage and nothing happens when she's 8 months old and the buck is 1 year old and she does not lift for the male at all. So what can I do for her to lift up? I already answered this question once tonight, but I'll answer it one more time. The best thing that you can do most of the time is just keep trying. Put the doe in the buck's cage, give her 15 minutes or so. If she doesn't lift, take her out. Go back that evening, put her in the buck's cage. Wait 15 minutes or so, take her out. Go back the next morning, do it again. Go back the next evening, do it again. Usually after about 4 or 5 times, the doe's receptive at that point and she accepts the buck, but not always. Hopefully that kind of answers that question for you. A couple other things that you can do. You can take the buck out of his cage, put the doe in the buck's cage, leave her there for a couple of days, and then take her out, put your buck back in, and then put her in the cage with the buck. You never want to take the buck to the doe. They can be very territorial and be very dangerous. But that can sometimes work as well. I've even heard people talk about just take the doe, put her in a pet carrier, take her for a ride around the block a couple of times in your car, and then put her in the buck's cage, and sometimes that works for some reason. I don't know why. All right, what else we got? Should you keep a little light beside your quail cage at night so they can see or know? Not really, no. They need the night. They need to go to sleep at night. So keeping a light out there all night long is really not the best. It's best to keep one, I extend the daylight. You can see my hutches behind me. They've got lights on right now. It comes on at dusk automatically and extends the daylight a little while. And that works to keep the eggs laying. But I am looking for a better solution, which, again, I should be able to bring to you guys soon, that will alleviate that problem of it staying on all night long. All right, what do you know about chickens? Someone gave me 8 layers, and they were doing great. He gave me 9 more, which I added to the 8, and so far 2 have died. What can I do to stop them from fighting? Well, if they're anything like quail, let's see, I've had some experience with chickens, but it's been a long time. But the same thing with quail, you pretty much just got to wait it out. Or what you can do is kind of put them in a run where they can't quite get to each other, but they can see each other. And kind of acclimate that way, give them a little bit of time, and then try to mix them in. Or if you can find the bully chicken, the one chicken that's kind of instigating everything, you might be able to isolate that chicken for a while, let the rest of them kind of mingle together, and then introduce that one chicken back to it. It's kind of tricky though. Maddox Trigg says, what can I give my girl rabbit to lift? I've talked about that a couple times already. There's not really much you can give her. Just keep trying. Morning, night, morning, night, morning, night, 15 minutes or so at a time. And usually about the 4th or 5th time, she'll be receptive and lift at that point. All right, this says I love games again. My rabbits aren't completely out of the wind. The cage, oh, I got something in my eye. Hang on. Eyelash or something, making it hard to see. All right, there we go. Not completely out of the wind. Cage has room where there is no screen and completely blocked all wind. Also, one day I came home and they were all snuggled up in the room. So they have a room that they can get in to get out of the wind. If that's the case, they should be fine. Don't stress about that. All right, L. Junior Lino, how do you determine the age of a quail? Well, if it's over 8 weeks old, I'm not really sure you can determine the age of the quail. A little bit, I mean, you can kind of tell in a way. The older quail will have a little bit more fat on them, so they'll be a little bit more just, I don't know, bulky, I guess, but it's not really, you can't determine exactly how old they are. No way to really do that, unfortunately. Okay, Trench Annan says, Texas passed a law in September. No one can deny owning up to 6 hens, no matter where you live. Celebrating here, brother Chris. Well, hey, I would celebrate on that too. I wish they would do the same thing right around here. But unfortunately, they haven't. Luckily, my town does allow chickens, so it's not really a big deal for me, but there are some towns that don't. All right, TV, that's a foreign language. Looks like maybe Arabic or something that I can't read. I'm sorry. If I could, I would try to answer your question. So I'm not trying to ignore you there. Can I do more rabbit breeding videos? Yeah, I just did one just a little bit ago. A couple weeks ago, whenever I bred my other doe. I guess I could probably do some more, but I won't be breeding again for several weeks, maybe a month out. Noob King says, yeah, can you do more rabbit breeding videos? Yeah, do you guys have specific topics you want addressed in rabbit breeding videos? Because I'll be happy to do them, just not sure what other topics to cover, and I don't want to just bore you guys with the, here's a rabbit breeding, not much there. Diplomatic says, is cannibalism normal in quail? Whenever an older quail of mine dies, the other birds peck out the eyes and tear at the organs of the dead bird. A real nasty sight to see. I can't find anything online. It's not uncommon for them, especially if you're not using a high enough protein feed. A lot of times that can be the problem. So if you've got something that's like under 15% protein, that may be the problem. Look for trying to get a higher protein feed. A lot of times if you see them doing that, it may not be that that it died and then they pecked at it. It may be that they killed the bird because they're fighting or something like that. But if you can get that protein up a little bit higher, that might fix that problem a little bit. Sorry, I got distracted by something flying over. You live in the Caribbean. Is it Caribbean or Caribbean? Either way. And there's no law for owning chickens. That's nice. Glad to hear that. I wish they didn't have a law for that anywhere around here. Again, my city doesn't. I can own chickens, but some cities in the area do have a law for that. All right, Crystal. I took my doe to my buck. She mounted the buck, but that was all I know. She's a doe. She just had kits 8 weeks ago. What do I do to get her to let him breed her? This topic's come up like 4 or 5 times already. I'm not laughing at you. I'm sorry if that comes across that way. Keep trying. That's really all you got to do. Try in the morning, try at night. Try in the morning, try at night. Try in the morning, try at night. And give her 15 minutes or so at a time. If she's mounting your buck, there could be any number of reasons for that. A dominance thing, who knows. But usually after about 4 or 5 times, she's going to be much more receptive to that. You might also try to, I didn't mention this earlier in the comments, but another thing you might do is add some light so that they have about 14 hours of light a day. Sometimes that'll get them more in the breeding mood. I love games, says, I just want rabbit videos in general. They are interesting. Well, I usually do 1 rabbit video a week. It usually comes out on Tuesday. It always comes out on Tuesday night. Sometimes I miss a week here or there because life gets in the way, but I try to get a rabbit video every week, some kind of topic covered. So I'll do my best to keep that up. If you guys have specific comment or specific video ideas you want to see addressed, leave me comments. Not in the live chat. You can come back to the live chat after it's posted and leave it, but this chat that we're talking through right now, that all disappears after this, video's over and the thing goes, becomes posted instead of live. All that disappears, so I won't be able to see them later. All right. I had an accidental brother and sister mating. I bought what we thought were 2 sisters, but surprise, she had 4 kids. I passed out, rest still looking good. Oh, 1 passed, but the rest are still looking good. Do you foresee any problems? Well, probably not. You're probably going to be fine, but I would avoid doing any more brother to sister breeding. That's really close genetics that you're probably eventually going to end up with problems. And I would make sure that those babies don't get bred to anything, don't end up passing those genes on to anything. I would probably eat them for dinner or something. That would be my way of handling that. What are my thoughts on fermenting quail feed? This is General Lee. That's a great name too. What are your thoughts on fermenting quail feed? Well, I don't see anything wrong with fermenting quail feed, but again, to me, it's just extra work that's not really necessary. There are some benefits to fermented food. I'm not convinced they're as much as everybody tries to make out. It's kind of one of those, hopefully I'm not offending anybody, what I call kind of hippie new age things. I do like the ideas of fermented foods. I make my own sauerkraut, pickles. I ferment, I make my own yogurt sometimes, those kinds of things. And I believe in the health benefits, the probiotics that go along with that. But at the same time, it's not like some kind of magic bullet. Somehow everybody kind of gets on these deals where apple cider vinegar, drink a teaspoon of that a day and it'll cure everything that ails you. It's good for you, but it's not magical. So I don't buy into it from that standpoint. Kimbo, I don't have a video right now on quail foot problems with bumblefoot because I haven't had that problem in a very, very, very long time. But if I do have that problem, I will make sure I post a video on it. But I haven't had a problem to actually show on video, so to speak. Oh, and I meant no offense to hippies. My parents were hippies. I like hippies just fine. So don't don't take that if you're a hippie. Don't take that offensive. I'm just again, I just kind of use that to describe. You know, when I say hippie new age, there's hippies, and then there's those hippies that just kind of buy into every kind of, you know, crystals and all that kind of stuff as being all magical, and that's kind of a little bit crazy in my opinion. But if you believe that, I'm not judging you for it. Don't take offense to that either. Just to me, it's a little bit crazy. I don't buy into all that. I probably should be careful of saying those kinds of things on a live broadcast. You know, I never know who's actually on the live broadcast, and I don't want to offend anybody. Oh, Noob King is leaving. Was it something I said? No, I'm just kidding. He's got to go for the evening. Thank you for joining, Noob King. You have a good night. All right, Average Fisherman got in here a little late. I got a 65% hatch rate. I'm sure it will go up. These were the first eggs. I'm sure it will go up just as long as your incubator is incubating at the right temperature. You probably will. I ended up with my last hatch with, I haven't done the math, 45 out of 50 eggs hatched. So that's a pretty good hatch rate. I meant if it affects anything with the feed intake due to the higher moisture content. Generally, I think you're talking about the fermented feeds. Does it affect anything with the food intake due to the higher moisture content? I don't know. I've never really actually fermented the feed myself. I think that they would probably eat a little bit less than what they would eat of the dried food, but I don't know that for sure. You'd have to try it. But I think you're probably onto something, that the moisture content in it alone would kind of get them to eat a little bit less of it and make your food last a little bit longer. What program do I use to stream? I use YouTube Live. I just do it on my iPad, and I have my computer right next to me so I can watch, you know, I can log into it myself. And so one of those 21 people that's logged in right now is me, anonymously of course, and I can watch the chat that way, but I don't do anything special. I'm pretty low tech. Trinjannon says all the hippies logged off. I hope not. I really hope I didn't offend anybody by that. You guys can call me a crazy right-wing Christian if you want to. I'm not offended by any of that kind of stuff. We all have our differences. I want to get along with everybody out there, so if I use some kind of term that, heck, I call myself a redneck, so, you know, don't take it offensive if I call you names. I don't mean it that way. Diplomatic Diplomer says, is there such a thing as gay quail? Well, maybe. I mean, you see some of that kind of activity in nature and all kinds of different animals, so yeah, it probably could happen. I don't know that it's gay in the same way you think of it as being that way. It's probably more of an opportunistic kind of thing, or confusion or whatever, but who knows? I've never seen that behavior in quail. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, though. Izzy says, general birds do, I don't know what you're responding to, I must have missed a question, but yeah, blue coat is great treatment for most injuries on birds. I usually find that quail really heal pretty well as long as you keep their cages clean. You don't have much, I don't usually have to treat much of anything. I mean, they can get an eye pecked out and they just recover just fine on their own most of the time. But if you need something, blue coat's a good solution for that, and you can find that at, you know, Tractor Supply or any kind of farm supply store. It was from 1958 to 1962, pretty young then. Oh, Mike, is that Michelle? Michelle, almost called you Michael. I think you were talking about living in Trinidad and Tobago, so. Yes, Trinchain, and I am a Jesus freak, so call me that if you want to. It's all right with me. And what's the freedom of speech? I'm not sure. Outdoor Trapper, well, thank you so much for watching the videos. I'm glad you like them. And Lil J says, thanks so much for the informative videos. Yesterday we went to pick up our first breeding pair, and they're settling in nicely. Very nice. Glad to hear it, and congratulations. So, Trench Annan, I think you're saying me too, as you being a Jesus freak as well. Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. That means we're family, right? Crystal Dickey says, I was bragging about you in my Backyard Meat Rabbits group on Facebook. A lot of people looking for advice. I sent everyone to your channel. Well, thank you so much for that. I appreciate the recommendations. Okay, Michelle, it's really amazing that you can go through every comment and give everyone feedback. I don't know that I get every one of them, but boy, I sure try. Where I really miss, I think, is when somebody posts a comment and I post an answer and then they come back and post again. Those sometimes get lost and I just can't find them again, or there's just so many of them that it's hard to keep up with that. So if anybody ever sees that where I haven't responded to a comment or something like that and you want to respond to it, let them know that I do my best. You've talked to me, and I do my best to respond to every one of them. I don't mean anything rude by not responding. I really try. Have I ever considered buying a shed for my rabbits, like a rabbit shed? I'm thinking about it. I do kind of have a shed. I mean, it's a lean-to. You've probably seen my shed. It's just tarp. The sides are just tarped, and the back is kind of up against the back of my house. So it's really not much more than just a frame with tarps down the side and in the front, and the back being up against the back of my house. Which, I mean, there's actually a gap it's about that wide. I can't get it all on camera. About that wide, maybe a little more, between the shed and the house. But that gives them the wind block. It gives them all that kind of stuff. So, no, I haven't really thought about buying anything more. They do fine in there, so I don't see any reason to put anything more into it. All right, Lil J says, the female is a bit standoffish, and we're giving her space to build trust. The male, however, is such a cuddler and loves attention. They are so grateful to you and your experiences that you have shared. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that, and I'm glad that you're finding the videos helpful. I usually find that too. My bucks are almost always way more susceptible, way more, I don't know what to say, way more tame, I guess is the thing. Most of them really do like a little bit of attention. They like their head to be scratched a little bit, and the females tend to be a little bit more, like you said, standoffish. Sometimes they'll warm up to you, sometimes they won't. I typically, everybody wants to know how to tame them up. I really just leave them alone. I don't mess with them too much. I talk to them when I feed them. I bring them some treats every now and then, but they're comfortable being left alone, so that's what I do. Other than, when I have to get them out to breed them or something like that, I really don't wait too much, or really don't mess with them too much. Just let them be. They seem to be more happy that way. Outdoor Trapper says, can't wait till next week's video. Well, thank you. I'm not sure what I'm going to shoot on next week, so if you guys got suggestions, things you want to see, come back to this video afterwards and leave comments, and I'll see that, and I'll do my best to get that addressed. I'll probably be shooting video this weekend. Hey, Valerie. Hey, Bob. I missed your comment. Hey to you, too. Michelle says you think the videos are too short. Well... Sorry, I'm not trying to make them too short. I say what it needs to be said to address the topic, and then I don't want to just babble on and on and on and on and on. So I try to get to the point, get it quick, respect everybody's time, get you the information, address it as fully and completely as I can, and then end the video there. The breed used ivermectin monthly for ear mites. May I have your opinion on this, please? Lil J, I don't use it myself. If you are going to use it, you don't want to... a couple of issues with that I have, honestly. Not saying that they're doing anything wrong. If it works for them, it works for them. But if you are using that, you don't want to eat the meat for at least 30 days, probably longer, after you stopped using it. You don't want that in the meat when you're eating it. Not good. Secondly, I don't really want to preventatively treat my rabbits for anything. Ear mites are easy enough to take care of. If they do get ear mites with just regular old cooking oil, mineral oil, any of those kinds of things, I don't see any reason to go to chemicals or any of those kinds of things to treat them, especially not if they don't have ear mites already. The whole time I've had rabbits, I've had ear mites like 3 times maybe, and it's really not that big of a deal. All right, James Johnson says, at what temp should I put heat lamp out, or do you really need for quail? Oh, you're talking about if they're staying outside? I don't use a heat lamp on my outside quail. They just stay outside all the time. As long as you give them a place to get out of the wind, and they have a sandbox in mind so they can get off the wire and onto something that's a little more solid so the wind's not blowing up through the bottom at them. But as long as they have that, they seem to do just fine, very cold hardy. And we get down below 0 here, so not a big deal. All right, Bob says, I move all my rabbits for cage renovations, and my female was doing its thing with another female. What does that mean? The other female tried staying away from the other female. It's probably just a vie for dominance. They're trying to establish which one's the most dominant. That's all it is. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Quessy, have a good night. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you maybe next week. I don't mind using mineral oil because they will be breeding for meat. Well, Lil J, I mean, mineral oil is food grade. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't introduce chemicals in their body or anything like that, so no danger in using it. It's my preferred method of using to treat ear mites. It works. It does a great job, so I agree. Whether they're meat rabbits or not, I would use mineral oil for it. I just think it's when you have a natural solution that works better or works well, there's no reason to go to anything harsher, in my opinion. Do I use diatomaceous earth in my cages to get rid of lice and ticks? Bob, I don't have a problem with lice and ticks on any of my animals, so no, I don't use it. There are some concerns about using diatomaceous earth with lung problems. It can be pretty dangerous in some ways, so if you're going to use it, make sure it's food grade first of all and use it sparingly. But I would wait until I had problems with one of those before I would use it. Okay, Average Fisherman says, when is the ideal time to remove the heat lamp for baby quail? They are inside right now. When they feather out, usually that's about 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks old. Whenever they go from the baby fuzz to feathers, then you can remove the heat lamp. And don't just jerk it right off of them at 100 degrees. Ease it off a little bit for a day or two. What I usually do is, it's 100 degrees in the brooder box, and after a week and a half, I move it a little bit further away. And I watch my birds. If they're all crowded under the heat lamp, I'll move it a little bit closer. But they'll usually spread out a little bit after a couple of hours of that and be just fine. And then I give them another day or two, and then I move it a little bit further away. And then I move it a little bit further away the next day, and a little bit further away the next day. And usually by the time they're about 2.5 weeks old, I can just turn it off. They don't need the heat lamp anymore. And if it's anything above 30 degrees outside, they can usually go right outside at that point. If it's going to be freezing, hard freeze, anything like that, I'll keep them for another week in the brooder box till they get a little bit more bulk on them before I send them outside. Hopefully that answered that. All right, guys, we're getting close to the 1 hour mark. I've got my wife and stepson in there. I need to go have some family time with them. I'm going to have to start wrapping this up here pretty quick. Thank you guys so much for joining the video tonight. I really look forward to these each and every week. Hopefully, when I'm traveling in 2-3 weeks, whatever it is, when I'm in the Dominican Republic, I'll be able to do live video. I know I say that every time and it never manages to happen, but hopefully this time I'll actually be able to do it. So again, come back to this video once it posts. Leave me some comments. Let me know what you'd like to see addressed in future videos, and I will do my best to do that. One more question from Michelle. Yeah, if you're using diatomaceous earth, it's fine to eat the meat and it's fine to eat the eggs. No problems with that. All right, guys, wrapping it up, getting off here for the night. Again, thank you so much for joining this video. As I always tell you every time, God bless each and every one of you, and we will see you guys next week. Take care.